I just want to say I am fortunate to have known LuAnn Lundquist for nearly 20 years since I moved here. And what immediately struck me was her kindness. Is the most determined woman I've ever met. She never gives up. She's relentless in terms of providing for this community with and families that are dealing with dementia. And well, you know, when you're dealing with dementia, you don't need to deal with too much else. You know, it's a full-time job. So I met her when she was running the Alzheimer's Association here in town. And what she noticed, and rightly so, is that Alzheimer's doesn't necessarily provide services, and that's what's needed. You know, when you get a diagnosis of someone in your family, you want to know, what can I do? Where can I go for help? You know, and LuAnn founded Memory Matters. And she addresses the real needs of families dealing with this and patients as well. And I'm not going to steal any of her thunder because she's going to tell us about all the services she provides and what a great resource she is for our community as we Heidi ho down the path of aging. So I'm not going to even tell you about the services. She's going to tell you. So I want to introduce my friend and colleague, and what a professional, LuAnn Lundquist, Memory Matters, Utah. LuAnn, take it away, girl.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very honored to be here with you today and to be asked to provide this information. To me, it is a calling. It's so important that this information is out for everyone that's interested. I've found in my life that if they don't need it, they're not interested. But if they have someone they care about or they're worried about themselves, then that's when they're interested. And I'm just really happy to be able to provide that with to you today. And welcome any questions or comments that you might have. I've got a PowerPoint that's going to explain the information about the research and the lifestyle factors that will affect your brain health. And then 10 years ago, I founded Memory Matters Utah. I founded it as the Alzheimer's and Dementia Society, and then we changed the name to Memory Matters Utah because what we do is more service oriented than, you know, intellectual, you know, with the studies and so forth. And so if you want a copy, well, what I'll do is I will send a copy of this presentation and then 2 other research articles that I thought were really good to Anne, and then she will mail those out if you would like those. So you don't have to take notes. Don't you just hate taking notes? So we'll proceed that way. And I'd like to start with, if this will work, I'd like to start with this wonderful short video about Alzheimer's and its effect on the brain. And it's from the National Institute of Aging, and that link is below. And you'll have that when you get the copy.
In healthy people, all sensations, movements, thoughts, memories, and feelings are the result of signals that pass through billions of nerve cells or neurons in the brain. Neurons constantly communicate with each other through electrical charges that travel down axons, causing the release of chemicals across tiny gaps to neighboring neurons. Other cells in the brain, such as astrocytes and microglia, clear away debris and help keep neurons healthy. In a person with Alzheimer's disease, the most basic form of dementia, toxic changes in the brain destroy this healthy balance. These changes may occur years, even decades, before the first signs of dementia. Researchers believe that this process involves 2 proteins called beta amyloid and tau, which somehow become toxic to the brain. It appears that abnormal tau accumulates, eventually forming tangles inside neurons. And beta amyloid clumps into plaques, which slowly build up between neurons. As the level of amyloid reaches a tipping point, there is a rapid spread of tau throughout the brain. But tau and beta amyloid may not be the only factors involved in Alzheimer's. Other changes that affect the brain may also play a role over time. The vascular system may fail to deliver sufficient blood and nutrients to the brain. The brain may lack the glucose needed to power its activity. Chronic inflammation sets in as microglial cells fail to clear away debris, and astrocytes react to distressed microglia. Eventually, neurons lose their ability to communicate. As neurons die, the brain shrinks, beginning in the hippocampus, a part of the brain important to learning and memory. People may begin to experience memory loss, impaired decision-making, and language problems. As more neurons die throughout the brain, a person with Alzheimer's gradually loses the ability to think, remember, make decisions, and function independently. Achieving a deeper understanding of the molecular and cellular mechanisms and how they may interact is vital to the development of effective therapies. Much progress has been made in identifying various underlying factors. Advances in brain imaging allow us to see the course of plaques and tangles in the living brain. Blood and fluid biomarkers are providing insights about when the disease starts and how it progresses. More is also known about the genetic underpinnings of the disease and how they can affect particular biological pathways. These advances enable the development and testing of promising new therapies, including drugs that reduce or clear the increase of tau and amyloid proteins in the brain, therapies targeting the vascular system, glucose metabolism, and inflammation, and lifestyle interventions like exercise or diet, and behavioral approaches like social engagement that may enhance brain health. Research is moving quickly, ever closer to the day when we can delay or even prevent the devastation of dementia.
I loved that, and I think it was a great introduction to what we're going to be talking about today. If you'll notice on that video, they talked about several different causes of Alzheimer's disease that they are studying right now, and then different therapies and research that they're looking into, and I thought it was really helpful. They also talked about genetics and Alzheimer's disease. So let's talk about genetics for a little bit right now. What about genetic testing? The technology today is available. Genetic testing is really rather inexpensive, very easy to find. So I looked up the four most popular ones are Genopalette, 23andMe, Ancestry, and Nutrition Genome. And so they can test for a lot of different things, but one of those things that they would test for would be the APOE4 gene, which is more, you have a higher risk of getting Alzheimer's if you have that gene. It doesn't mean that you will get it, it just means you have a higher risk. So my grandson has Asperger's disease or Asperger's syndrome, and so my daughter did a genetic test with him. It was so interesting what they found, and so I decided I wanted a genetic test. And it's so I went with Nutrition Genome. That's what she had used. And it talks about what things you need nutritionally, what's your best exercise type, your cardiovascular health. So I just took a screenshot that you can see here of one of the pages, and it's the cardiovascular health and exercise. And so you can see for HDL and LDL, that's a medium priority. For example, triglycerides triglycerides are a high priority for me. And then also what's raw plant intake was a high priority for me. Then I talked about exercise, and what things like weightlifting for inflammation was less important, but high intensity exercise for inflammation was more important according to my genetic makeup. So what about genetic testing if you're just looking for that APOE4 gene? I'm going to give you two examples that I've had experience with. About 5 years ago, we had a fundraiser and we had alcohol at the fundraiser, and there was a gentleman there who came up to me after he'd had several drinks, and he said, "I'm going to get Alzheimer's disease. I've got the APOE4 gene, so it's a sure thing, and so I'm just going to party and drink and not worry about life." And I don't know what happened to him, what his result was. Like I say, it's been about 5 years. But I thought, that doesn't sound right to me. And of course, there's been a lot of studies since then. And we know now that if you have the APOE4 gene, that there's something called epigenetics. So epigenetics is like a light switch. And so it can turn that gene on or turn it off. And so the epigenetics will affect the activation of that gene. And I think probably just drinking and partying is not a good action for epigenetics when it comes to that gene. And so I don't think his risk was affected positively with his lifestyle choice. So now let's look at someone else. I live in New Harmony, and when I founded Memory Matters about 10 years ago, my friend David Larson was the researcher, and they were researching a nutritional conglomeration on Alzheimer's disease. So two of my clients here in New Harmony got on that study. One was more advanced and one was just newly diagnosed. The one that was more advanced, his Alzheimer's did go on, and that's eventually what he passed away from. But my other friend got it really early on, but his mother had it, his aunts and uncles had died from Alzheimer's disease, his older sibling had it and was in a nursing home. He knew he was going to get it. And he was an airline mechanic. Worked for one of the major airlines. So when he was diagnosed very, very early on, he had been watching for it. And of course, you can't work in the airlines as a mechanic if you have Alzheimer's. So they bought some acreage out here in New Harmony, and he bought an old tractor, and he was going to take the tractor apart and rebuild it. And as he got it apart, he went to put it back together, and this brilliant airline mechanic couldn't figure out how to put a simple old tractor back together again. It's about that time that he started this clinical trial with this nutritional supplement, and within 3 months, he was able to put the tractor back together, and within 6 months, his wife said that his old personality had come back. Well, we live close by them, and eventually all of his markers, all of the challenges that come with Alzheimer's disease started to disappear. And basically he lived the next 10 years, passed away from something else. And so there is something with lifestyle, there's and epigenetics that can change the trajectory of genetics. And so that's important to keep in mind if you decide to get a test. So let's talk about ways that genetic testing can help if you decide to do that. Applied knowledge is power. If people know that they're at an increased risk, they can do more about the kind of lifestyle factors they have control over. We don't have control over everything, but there are so many things we do have control over. And if there's something that we have control over, that gives us hope. It energizes us, empowers us to make a difference in our future, and we can reduce the risk. So in research, Terry wanted me to find out what's the latest in Alzheimer's research. So one of the places that I went to was sciencedaily.com. The website is there. And so this was what the latest was as of yesterday. And you can see that there's a great long list, and I won't go over all of these. You'll have access to them when we email that out. But there's two here that I found really interesting. New research may explain unexpected effects of common painkillers. I went into that one, and there were two drugs. I didn't recognize the one, but the other one was ibuprofen. And it said other ones in that class didn't help, but those two helped. And they helped to reduce the risk. And I found that fascinating. The other one was an arthritis anti-inflammatory drug. The other one that I found really interesting was vitamin D deficiency can lead to dementia. And even people that work outside nowadays, wearing sunscreen or whatever, we our culture is more vitamin D deficient than it used to be. And so that's, a big deal. And that's something that's so easy to fix. And vitamin D also increases your immune system and gives you energy. What a bonus. And it's cheap. Another thing was game-like exercise helps older adults to improve. So there are all these kind of studies on lifestyle, on drugs, and on nutritional supplements that we can take that are helpful. Okay, Alzheimer's treatment, what's on the horizon? I'm not going to try to pronounce some of these drugs. It might be quite entertaining if I tried, but monoclonal antibody that works on beta amyloid. That's one of the drug classes that they're looking at. And monoclonal drugs in those studies are listed here. And this one near the bottom on the left is donanemab, and it's in phase 2. Finishing up, getting ready to go into phase 3 of the drug trials. And as I looked on clinicaltrials.gov, that is being offered either in Las Vegas or at the University of Utah as that they're starting to recruit for phase 3 on that trial. If you wanted to get involved in that, you're welcome to do that. And then there's one that was scrapped. It didn't meet their criteria. So they're going to actually take that back into the clinical trials and try it for preclinical people that are that have the APOE4 gene but don't have symptoms yet. Another one that they're looking at is improving your immune system by turning off a protein, allowing synapses to start working again. And those are, that's listed down below. And then they're working on drugs to inhibit tau. This works like a vaccine. Another thing that they're working on is inflammation reducers. And then inflammation is a big deal when it comes to Alzheimer's. They feel like that's one of the big players in the cause of Alzheimer's. And so that drug is listed. Another thing that they're looking at is insulin resistance and trying to work on drugs with that. They're working on drugs that work with the heart and head connection and lifestyle. So there's clinical trials for those. Hormones, if somebody has early menopause, for example, they're more at risk. And so they're trying to figure out why that is. So they're working on hormone therapies. But they have found that regular hormone replacement therapy doesn't do the job. So it has to do with early menopause somehow. And then they've also formed a coalition against major diseases, and that was formed to help share study information. So if you have Eli Lilly that's been studying something, and then another drug company over here is studying something, Eli Lilly didn't want to share their information that they spend a lot of money on with these guys. So these guys had to start from scratch and do the same studies and try to get the same data, where this coalition says, nope, we're going to share our information. So it cuts down on the time and it cuts down on the expense and helps get new drugs to the market faster, which I thought was fabulous, just a way of sharing information. Now let's talk about risk factors for developing Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Genetics is, of course, a big deal. There's familiar genes, and those are more prevalent, usually associated with young onset. But there are over 20 risk genes that work toward your risk of developing Alzheimer's disease or dementia. But remember that there's the epigenetics that's like a light switch, that most of that has to do with lifestyle factors that will turn off and turn on those risk genes. Age is the next biggest factor in risk. And so as we get older, we often have high blood pressure, damaged blood vessels, weaker immune system, poorer sleep. We often isolate. There's all these problems associated with aging, and some of them are lifestyle and some of them are health that is deteriorating. And so that makes that a higher risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. The next one is cognitive reserve. What is cognitive reserve? People have less cognitive reserve if they leave education early, if they have less job complexity, or if they have social isolation. So how does that work? So the opposite is true. If they have more education, they have a more complex job, and they are more social, then they have more cognitive reserve. So how that works is, if you imagine your two hands in a fist, and that's your brain cells, and there's a synapse in between. And then if you start to put your fingers out of that fist, those are areas of communication, and that's where you grow cognitive reserve. So the more cognitive reserve, the more extensions you have from those neurons that carry the messages. And so if you do get Alzheimer's disease, there's a lot of damage that happens before you get to normal. And so the more cognitive reserve that you have, the better your chances are of having a healthy brain lifestyle. Another risk factor is being female. I guess this disease isn't politically correct, right? Women live longer than men, and age is a big factor. And they've also found that women over the age of 80 have a higher risk than men over the age of 80. But you can't change that. So, just face that one and move on. Another one is ethnicity. Black African, Black Caribbean, and South Asians have a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. And then living in a third world country, a deprived area, a deprived childhood also increase your risk. And then health conditions and diseases, cardiovascular disease, hearing loss, depression. They say it starts in your gut, chronic stress, sleep apnea. All of these increase your risk of getting Alzheimer's disease. But a lot of these things we have treatments for, and you have the power to do something about that. So that's a good thing. So let's talk about what we can do to reduce our risk. We want to be the yellow happy ball in the middle and not the sad blue balls, right? And a lot of reducing our risk is within our power to make a difference. So what is in our power? What are those things? The thing that has been proven over and over and over again is physical exercise reduces our risk of getting Alzheimer's and dementia. So there are all kinds of exercise. So what kind of exercise do we have to do? Some people like exercise, other people don't like exercise. So let's look at what's really required. People who exercise regularly have a lower risk of developing Alzheimer's, and that's because they have increased blood flow, which carries increased oxygen and increased nutrients to the brain. And it gets past that blood-brain barrier. It makes a difference. It also stimulates chemicals within the body that enhance learning and mood and thinking. It has a tremendous effect. It's like being able to take a super pill by exercising. And our body makes up the nutrients in that pill. It's wonderful. So what do you want to aim for? 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, or a daily goal of about 10,000 steps if you use a pedometer or look at that on your smartphone. There are different kinds of physical exercise. There's strength training, stretching, balance exercises. And they're all helpful for improving your mood and cognition, decision making, keeping you strong and flexible, and helping you to move about as you age. So my husband is a retired physical therapist, and he's always telling people motion is lotion when it comes to the joints. And so it helps more than the brain. It really helps with arthritis pain. Not at first, you have to keep going, and then that helps. It applies the ability to move to those joints. So physical exercise is the #1 lifestyle factor. So let's look at some of the ways that you can do that. Here's a good list of aerobic exercises, muscle strengthening exercises, balance exercises, and flexibility exercises. And these all have their own unique benefits. So it's kind of like eating a variety of colorful fruits and vegetables. You want to exercise with a variety of types of exercise. And so that was a good segue into food and nutrition. You want to eat smart so you can think better, because you are what you eat. Foods rich in antioxidants can fend off harmful oxidation in your brain. So what does that look like? I love to use the example of an apple. So an apple is like a brain cell, and you cut that apple in half, and you dip 1/2 in lemon juice. That's antioxidants. And then you put both of them on the countertop, and at the end of the day, you come home and you're going to see that 1/2 of the apple is not something you'd want to eat. It's brown and it's decaying because it's been exposed to the oxygen, and so it's starting to decay. The other one that was dipped in antioxidants is still pretty in color, and it's fresh. You can pick that half up and eat it right then. So if you think about that in your brain, your brain needs a lot of nutrition from antioxidants. And because as you're exposed to stress and environmental factors, it starts to cause a harmful effect on those brain cells. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Here you'll see a picture of the Mediterranean diet pyramid. And if you look at the very base, you're going to see socialization. So important. The next level up, you're going to see a beautiful display of colors of food. You're going to see whole grains and fruits and vegetables and herbs and oil. And if you look at the color of each one of those fruits and vegetables is a marker of the antioxidant that it contains. And so that's why it's so important that you eat a beautiful display of color with your food. Besides, it's just pretty. It's more fun to eat it that way. And then as you eat these plant-based foods like fruits and vegetables, potatoes, whole grains, nuts, beans, seeds, extra virgin olive oil, they're all very important to brain health. And this one again just talks about how the colors are very important. And it gives examples of fruits and vegetables that are really high in antioxidants that are most helpful to your brain. And then fish, oily fish that is wild caught is really good to eat at least twice a week. Spices such as turmeric and ginger and cinnamon are really good for your brain. In fact, turmeric is one of the herbs that have been proven to help with inflammation, which is a highly suspected problem with developing Alzheimer's. And then the other thing is whole grains. Whoops, oh my goodness, I went too fast. Is whole grains. Such as oats and barley and quinoa. They have a lot of B vitamins, and B vitamins have been shown to help reduce the shrinkage of the aging brain. That's amazing right there. With the genetic testing, going back to that, about half of, or a little bit less than half of the European genetic people with that European genetics have a methylation problem where they don't metabolize the B vitamins. So there's certain kind of B vitamins that you can get, but eating them through food is a great way to have the full effect of the B vitamins. Okay. The next thing is controlling your medical risks. And those include hypertension, diabetes, depression is a big one. We'll talk about that. Head trauma, cholesterol, smoking, all of these different risks. And again, you can be empowered because you have control over these things. These are things you can do to make a difference in your brain health. Let's talk more about those. Sleep and relaxation. So what studies have found with sleep are really interesting. First, let's go to those of us that are older. As we get older, our skin loses a lot of its collagen and elasticity. And so we notice that our skin is a little bit more sagging and not as tight as it was when we were younger. That same thing is happening with the skin within, for example, your soft palate. So keep that in mind. Now, the next important part is that when we sleep, when we have REM sleep, then our body puts out a chemical that almost paralyzes the muscles in our body. And so REM sleep is rapid eye movement, but your body isn't having movement. You're dreaming, but your body is kind of held still during this time, and that's when the body goes in and the microglial comes in and cleans the junk out of our brain. So REM sleep is so vital to us, and so that's why sleep is so important. So now we've got REM sleep that's so important, and we've got this looser skin where the soft palate and other tissues can come in and close off our airway. But we have this chemical that is making it so that we can't move. And so our brain is going to try to keep us alive, right? Because we're stopping our breathing process, and we need that to stay alive. So your brain is going to try really hard to wake you up and get you out of REM sleep. So it's going to fill your bladder. It's going to make you have restless legs. It's going to give you nightmares and all of these other processes as it tries to wake you up so that you breathe. So it's a complex system, and if we don't take good care of it, it's going to affect our brain health. We're not going to get the oxygen that we need to the brain at night when we sleep, and we're not going to get the cleaning process that happens. So what do we do about that? I strongly suggest that you get a sleep study if you're over the age of 60. and find out if you are being affected by sleep apnea. It can result in snoring, but you can have obstructive sleep apnea without snoring. And then there's another kind of sleep apnea where your brain isn't having you breathe as deeply, and so you're not getting the oxygen. So a sleep study can go in and figure that out. And fortunately, there's technology, there's CPAP machines, and there's another technology called Inspire that's new, but I don't think Medicare pays for it yet. But there are options out there. So I really strongly suggest a sleep study because that's a huge component that we don't often think about. Another thing that's really helpful, and it helps our sleep, and helps in so many other important ways, is mindful meditation. And so that has physical benefits, it has psychological benefits, it helps us focus, improves our sleep. It can reduce depression and pain and boost emotional well-being. Those are some really good things to think about. And so it also activates feel-good prefrontal cortex brain chemistry. And so that helps with depression. And it just helps to calm our mind and give our mind that space and that quiet to really activate those parts of the brain. So that can look like taking a mindfulness class or an online course or mindfulness meditation music. It could be taking a meditation course. And it's also praying. Praying will get you those same benefits, is taking the quiet time to pray, to be mindful, and to meditate, managing stress in a very positive way. Now this one really took me, I was surprised on this one. Depression. So it seems like if you're depressed, that ought to be enough, but actually to deal with. But actually, someone that has untreated depression for 2 weeks, which, I mean, it's going to take you 2 weeks to figure out you're really depressed, right? But within 2 weeks, you're going to actually start to lose brain cells and cognition. And so depression plays a tremendous part in brain health that we really never imagined before. It's a real illness. It's just as real as diabetes when it comes to affecting the brain and affecting our energies and so forth. It's a chemical problem. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a flaw. And it's not something that you can just pull up your bootstraps and snap out of it. And it's very common as we age. But it's not a normal part of aging. And so it causes us to isolate. It causes us to actually adopt all the behaviors that are not brain healthy, that are brain destructive. Like we don't want to exercise. We don't want to eat right if we're depressed. And so it's really important that you talk to your doctor about depression and find the best way to manage depression or to fight it. And so most people who experience depression need treatment to get better. It's hard to do it by yourself, but it's so important that that's something that you look at and you address, and you do it as soon as possible, because within 2 weeks, it's going to start affecting your brain cells. And it affects them here at the very back of your brain is where it starts to atrophy. So if you have some depression, or if someone that you love is having depression that you're noticing and they're in denial, work with them to try to get treatment to help overcome that before it does any more damage to the brain. This next part is mental fitness. And in September, Memory Matters will start their fall early stage memory loss course. My friend Terry Koenig, that you all know, has been a great support and a presenter and educator in this course for us for many years, from the beginning, Terry. And she, the thing that she talked about was stress. She was amazing. And so we have now a presenter in this area of mental fitness, Kelly Charlton, and she's a professional in this area. She talks about the types of brain games and things that you can do that are helpful and that are less expensive, and also the things that deal with mental fitness that are not helpful and even destructive toward our brain fitness. So there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. And so let's talk about the sweet spot. You need to be a little out of your comfort zone. It needs to be a little challenging, but it can't be in the frustration zone. If you're really frustrated with it, it's putting out bad brain chemicals that you don't want. So out of your comfort zone, not in the frustration zone. Use as many senses as possible. For example, if you are learning to play the organ, you're using your right hand, your left hand, your right foot, your left foot, your eyes, and your ears. Basically, you're using everything but your taste buds to do that. And so you're using more of your senses, and it is more brain beneficial. Doodle with your non-dominant side. Brush your teeth with your left hand if you're right-handed. All of those things help with making brain connections and cognitive reserve. So it's your brain. Use it or lose it. The next thing that you can consider is learn something new, and new is the important part. Because it's new, it stimulates the brain. And so find something you love, try new games, learn a new hobby or skill, or take a class, and don't worry about being good at it. If you're really good at it and it's easy, it's not going to help your brain anymore. It needs to be new, and it needs to be just a little out of that comfort zone. And so novel activities help your brain form new cellular connections and strengthen the existing ones. So learn a new language or a musical instrument or photography. Fine art is amazing medicine. It uses your brain in so many different ways. And every time you start a new project, then it's something new that your brain is having.
This is really good. This gal's an expert.
So also it comforts and elevates the spirit. And so they use it in the healthcare clinic. For example, Cleveland Clinic uses fine art and art therapy. And that's something that can be fun. But again, don't worry about being good at it. Just enjoy the experience and the learning part. Play, do crossword puzzles, electronic brain games. It's just important to find something that you enjoy doing. And if you do it socially, then you get an added benefit. The next part is also pretty amazing, social interaction. So what's the opposite of that? It's isolation, right? So leading an active life can protect you against memory loss. Spending time with others, engaging in stimulating conversation, doing games, learning new things, they all have so many benefits. So what does that look like in the brain? So if you can imagine, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm using this frontal part of my brain. And so that part is really firing for me. But you are listening. And so the whole left side of your hemisphere is starting to fire to try to understand the words that I'm saying. And what are those words? What am I saying? What does it really mean? That whole hemisphere is firing for that. And then the other hemisphere, the right hemisphere, is firing up as you are formulating a response. Now, you may not ever say that response, and that doesn't matter. But the fact that you are thinking is firing up almost 2/3 of your brain. And about 1/3 of my brain is active when I'm talking. So you can see that in a social situation, as you're having conversations, especially meaningful conversations, your whole brain network is firing up. And the more that your brain fires up, the healthier it stays in those areas. So being social is vital to brain health. The next part, and it involves being social, is living with purpose and purpose in your living. So what does that look like? When you have social interaction, so I have the top picture is some Red Hat ladies that attended one of our fundraisers. They just get together and they have fun, and it's social and it's friendship and it's support, and that gives them purpose in living and something they enjoy. Attending church and having a spiritual life and that spiritual experience and meeting together, very meaningful and gives us purpose in life. And so doing things to volunteer and help other people is another thing that gives us purpose in life and helps us. All right, so what if you are already in the throes of memory loss, or you have someone that you love that is starting to deal with memory loss, or even has had a diagnosis? What do you do then? I mean, do these lifestyle factors still help you? Yes, in the early stages, all these lifestyle factors really do help maintain better brain health, even if you have memory loss already. They say that Alzheimer's disease starts anywhere from 10 to 20 years before you have enough symptoms to be diagnosed. And so maintaining lifestyle factors that are helpful for you is really good, especially through the early stage. So one thing to consider if you are a caregiver, often a caregiver wants to protect the reputation of the person that they're caring for. And so they tend to isolate, and they tend to try to do everything alone. And when they do that, it actually puts them at higher risk of developing Alzheimer's themselves. And another thing that it does is it creates a chronic stress. And if they don't get respite and the help that they need, that chronic stress over time will actually affect their physical health as well as their brain health. And so successful caregiving is a well-staffed team effort. And let me say that again. Successful caregiving is a well-staffed team effort. If you try to do it alone, it is very difficult, not only for your physical and mental health, but also it is not that helpful for the person that you care for. They actually need a team, even though they will fight against that and say they don't, because any change is hard for them to process. So this is a time when you really need to reach out for the help of other people. So Memory Matters is a nonprofit that is only available in our area right now. And we do offer boots on the ground, free resources to help support caregivers. And so every Wednesday at 1 o'clock, we have a live support group or an in-person support group. And I have to laugh because we used to hold it in the library, and during COVID, they shut the library down and didn't have groups there. And so after a while, our group says, we just need to meet together. And so we reopened it at Metcalf Mortuary. They had a room that they made available to us. And so I have to laugh because now our live support group is in a mortuary. And everyone is welcome. You don't have to make an appointment. You just come as it's helpful to you at 1 o'clock every single Wednesday. You don't need to worry which Wednesday of the month. It's every Wednesday. And the same thing, during COVID, we started a Zoom support group, and that is every Monday at 1 o'clock. And so to do that, you need to contact our office and give us your email so we can send you the Zoom invitation. And that'll be available in the next slide. We also have a free telephone reassurance program called Good Morning Sunshine. And we are able to call people who live alone with early stage memory loss. And also for caregivers that are caring for somebody in a later stage or that just need an extra line of support. So we call them every business day, and we're working to get volunteers now that we can do it even on the weekends, and just check on their well-being. And then if they're isolated and they're lonely, then we do it with volunteers so that the volunteers can spend the time and really visit with them. And this program has saved 2 lives over the past 4 years. A really interesting story on both of those. Another thing that we do is free caregiving consultation. So Janet or myself will visit with caregivers and talk about whatever they're most concerned about at this particular stage. And then we'll help them figure out what stage their loved one might be at. And we'll help them find resources in the community or resources that are commercial, either way, to help them as they journey along in this caregiving process. And sometimes they just need somebody to talk to that understands and that has been in the trenches with this disease process and with caregiving. Another service that we offer is an early stage memory loss course. And we do this in the spring and in the fall. And this is for the person with memory loss and their primary care partner. And we have professionals from the community like doctors and nutritionists and social workers, sometimes speech pathologists that come in and talk about topics of real big importance to people that are going through this journey. And then the second hour, we break into 2 groups, and there's cognitive training for those with memory loss, and then there's a caregiver workshop for those that are providing the care. And sometimes it's not unusual for the person with memory loss to come once or to sign up and then say, no, I'm not ready to be in public with this. And so we invite the caregivers to come on their own. And then the other thing that we provide are dementia activity groups through a licensed adult daycare. And that is a fee for service, but we keep our costs really quite low comparatively. And so that's available on Monday through Thursday from 10 until 3. And that's something that you do have to fill out paperwork and let us know ahead of time. But you're welcome to come and try it one day free together just to see if it's a good fit. So those are our main programs that we do through Memory Matters Utah. And Terry told me that I could put in a pitch. We're trying to find a place of our own that's really safe and that has a fenced-in area for our people that attend the activity group, and that we own free and clear. In the past 5 years, we've had 2 times where our lease payment had been increased by 250%. And if it wasn't for the help of the city of St. George to help us with the rent, and also with the help of the corporation that bought our building to discount that a little bit, I'm not sure what we would have done. And so as we move forward, we really need a place of our own that's paid for so that these services will always be available in our community, come what may. And so if this is something that you want to help with or be on a committee to help us achieve this capital fundraising goal, I encourage you to call me at the office and we'll visit more about that. So here's how you get a hold of us. Memory Matters Utah, right downtown St. George, next to Angelica's Grill and the Chamber of Commerce. And our website is listed there.
I have a comment.
Yes.
Excellent presentation. Thank you very much. I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm running a chess club at the Santa Clara Library. And it's on Thursdays,
Cool.
every Thursday at 4 o'clock until 7. I've been teaching chess to all ages for 20 years. And chess is really, really helpful for people of all ages. And help. It's brain exercise, it's social, it's fun, and we play with the handicap. If there's a strong player, they can use less time on their clock and or take a piece off. So it's not about winning or losing. It's about having fun and getting better. And I just wanted to mention that to everybody.
LuAnn, this is Terry. I just wonder, when is your, have you got anything planned in the future for fundraising? Because you didn't mention that not only are you the founder and the CEO, but you're also the big major fundraiser, because you have to raise funds, right? All the time.
And as you can see, I'm not really good at that part as advertising.
Because you forgot to mention it, yeah.
Yes.
I just wondered, are you planning one?
Yes, so every December, the first Friday in December, we have Let's Do Holiday Lunch. And we get together, the tables are decorated beautifully. We have musical performances by several different schools in the area. And it's a fabulous silent auction. And the ladies that are on our committee are amazing what they have been able to pull together and to make this just a really special Christmas time event, and it is one of our biggest fundraisers. So again, if you're interested in being on our committee, we're starting to meet up again for meetings, and we'd love to have new committee members. And if you're interested in that, I'll let Terry know when we have the save the date available, but it is the first Friday in December.
I really appreciated the presentation. It's so important for us at this stage of life. One thing that you didn't mention that I had read is really important is drinking water, because our brains are made up so much of water. And I think what they said was that even if your brain is just 2% down in water, it can have serious effects. And I know it's difficult for us. I know it's difficult for Paul. I'm always telling him to drink more water. And, we both try to do that. But I think everybody needs to improve their water consumption.
Lisa, thank you for that. You are absolutely on target with that. If we don't drink enough water, it's like our brains are sitting in sludge and it just can't have the chemical reactions that it needs. Thank you.
More than a question, I have been a caregiver for my husband who has Parkinson's for the last 3 years. And I have experienced all of what you've spoken about. The most helpful thing for me at this point in time is being on Zoom with you. I need to see human faces other than my husband's. Not that I don't like it. He's a handsome brute, but I don't want to be isolated. I find that the more I have interaction with people, either on the phone or in person, because I've hired on 3 days a week a private duty care, and it's been marvelous. I can't explain how important human contact is in any way or form. Everything you've said, I have tried to practice, and I have developed meal plans for my husband to include the Mediterranean diet. And also we have a physical therapist with exercise is critical. And I know it's critical for me, and that's why I need people to come into the house so I can go out and walk. Otherwise, I can't leave my husband alone. It's too dangerous. He's fallen 20 times in the last 6 weeks.
Wow.
And I'm having a horrible time trying to deal with all of this. And any help I get improves my mood. I'll tell you that. And the nurse recently asked me, am I depressed? I says, I can't be depressed. I've got too much to do.
Yes.
And so everything you've spoken about, I would like to be part of that caregiver workshop. I think it would be so helpful. I'd like to be part of a program that deals with my everyday needs. And what's happening now, I am so sleep deprived that I'm afraid to drive.
Mm.
And so now I had to rent a car, and you'll love this. I couldn't figure out how to work the car. It wasn't like the one I have. So I went online and Googled a reference guide for understanding the instrument panel, because when I drove it the first time, I had the heat, the seated heat, and the air conditioning going on at the same time. And I come home and I can't figure out, why am I so damn hot? And so I went on Google and I made copies of the instrument panel and of the other instruments on the car. And I went out into the car and I looked at the car and I learned where everything is. So what you're telling people is, as far as I'm concerned, most accurate.
Thank
And
you.
I would like a copy, a hard copy of this. This would help me have a reference point.
If it's emailed to you, do you have the resources to print it out, or would you like us to print a copy and mail it to you?
Would you mail it to me, please?
Yes, yes. And would you make a note of that? And I can, I just need to get your address, and then I'll print it out and mail it to you.
I wish you good luck, Arlene. I'm glad you're getting out to walk when you can, and I hope you can improve your sleep, because that's very vital, isn't it? I have wanted to address two issues, LuAnn, and thank you for your wonderful comments and helpfulness today.
Thank you.
I was so glad to see you put exercise right at the top of the list after genetics. I've lived by the motto that exercise is free medicine, as you said, and it really is. So keep moving. The question I have concerns your part about mental fitness. I've read a little bit about this, and I've been told that the very best possible mental exercise to help with mental acuity and Alzheimer's, preventing it, is when you're learning something new that involves your body, like dancing, because you have to not only think, but also move yourself. So any activity that involves that is very good. But I've also read that if you get very good at a mental activity, like a game, once you're pretty good at it, it's not helping you much anymore, like crossword puzzles.
Yes.
I wonder if you think my Scrabble is good, because you do have to try to think of every word. Is that worthwhile? Even playing pool, I don't know.
You know, it's all determined by you. Like you said, if it's too easy, then it's not beneficial anymore. You have to feel that challenge, and you have to enjoy it, and you have to not be frustrated. And if you have that, that's the trifecta of success.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
LuAnn, thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate it. We both do. I have one comment and one question. We started the Mind Diet a little over a year ago, which is the Mind Diet is a combination of Mediterranean and DASH, which allegedly is the best one, a neurologist told us, for preventing or hopefully slowing any processes down. But so we did that about a little over a year ago. It took us, first couple of months, it took us about 4 hours every time we went to the grocery store. It was just painful. But now we've got it squared away. We know what we're doing. So if anybody's interested in doing the diet, if they have any questions, consult us. The question I have is, you mentioned about the airline mechanic who used a supplement, and I'm just curious as to what the supplement was.
The supplement, what was it? It started with a P. It's been so long ago. But there was a time when there were so many supplements out there. What's the jellyfish one was one of them. And it kind of triggered the FDA to go through and just make it almost impossible for some of these to work. And so they pulled it off the market. So, but the ingredients to that supplement is something that I've got in my book from that time. And then I can also give you David Larson's contact information. And let me write that down. So I will send that to Anne as well. So that will go out in the email and you can contact him directly.
Thank you.
Having retired early because my father had Alzheimer's and my mother had dementia, I really benefited from the support groups in the Alzheimer's Foundation and also some of the phone calls. And I'd like to know how I can volunteer as a phone person.
Oh, and you would be fabulous. Just give our office a call and tell them you want to volunteer for the telephone reassurance program, or Good Morning Sunshine is what it's called. And we will get in contact with you and give you the training for that.
Okay, great, because I know that was so helpful to me.
It makes a big difference. And like I say, it saved 2 lives. And of course, there's always the necklace or the bracelet, and if you fall, it triggers things off. But for some reason, people don't want to use them. And so these are people that have fallen or have been in extreme circumstances where their health was at risk and they couldn't help themselves. And so having the caregiver, having the calling program set into action help for them immediately and save their lives. So it's a fabulous program, and it's free because we use volunteers to do it.
LuAnn, is there any organized program for help for caregivers who need, maybe to do some traveling? Need to leave the area maybe for a few days to see family or just get away for some more relaxation. Is there anything organized through Memory Matters or elsewhere?
So what is available, and a lot of this has to do with, we live in such a litigious society. And so liability insurance on anything is just really high and prevents a lot of help that would be available. So we have our licensed adult daycare, and that's helpful. There is a free service through the Area Agency on Aging called Senior Companion Program. And that's a free program, and there's usually a waiting list, but they just come once a week. So there are programs that, and a lot of them are self-paid, where you can put your loved one into a care facility and then you can go for several days. So it just depends on how big that chunk of respite time is that is needed. But it's so important for the caregiver to take that. Studies have shown that caregivers that don't get a minimum of 4 hours a week of planned respite, it has to be planned respite, where they have something planned they're going to do, even if it's taking a nap. But those that don't get that 4 hours a week, 60% of those healthy caregivers end up dying before the ill person they take care of. It's so vital that they invest in respite, whether it's adult daycare, whether it's facility, temporary care, whether it's somebody coming into the home. And so there are things available out there at really varying rates. So give us a call and we'll help set something up and help you to know what's available.
Thank you.
Michael has his chess club announcement, Thursdays from 4 to 7 at the Santa Clara Library with the 3 Fs, free, fun, and fantastic.
Michael, this is Terry, and I know nothing about chess. Do you take people like me? A tabla rasa?
Yes. We take everybody. I've taught people all the way, all from ages 5 or 4 all the way up to 95. I even gave a big lesson for a group of senior citizens in Hilton Head before I moved here. It's called Stressless Chess. So yeah,
I
please
love
come.
that.
That's nice.
Okay, it's on my bucket list.
I wanted to ask Barbara McLaughlin about that diet.
It's basically plant-based, no meat, except that we do sneak a little bit of chicken, salmon, and tuna in just because we need protein. Grains, berries, seeds, nuts. That's pretty much it. Yeah. But it's, and we do mostly bowls. So we layer the grain on the bottom. We put, and not white rice, but brown rice, barley, farro, quinoa. And then you layer the vegetables, all different colors, more colorful the better, all around it. And then we'll put seeds and nuts on top, and we eat nuts by the ton. Just all day long. We'll leave them out in cups and eat them. And I buy them on, actually the Natural Grocer has right now the least expensive nuts: almonds, cashews, walnuts. I was getting them online in 5 and 10 pound bags, but they're actually, last I checked, not the least expensive. But that's essentially it. The Mind Diet will tell you a glass of red wine and water, a lot of water and green tea.
It's even cheaper than Costco?
Costco, a lot of the nuts they have salt. My blood pressure now is so low because of, I guess because of this diet, I don't know, it's ridiculously low, that I actually eat salt, but most people should not be eating salt. Right. So Costco, and actually Costco I don't think is less expensive now. I've looked, but a lot of them are more like party nuts rather than nuts.
We get our almonds in a big bag and our walnuts, and they're not salted or
salty.
Yeah, they're not party type stuff. It's just plain. And cashews also.
National Grocers is now $6.42 a pound, $6.45 a pound, I think it is. Okay. So I haven't checked Costco lately, and I also get the blanched almonds rather than in the skins because I eat so many of them that the skins start to get caught in my throat. So I eat the blanched almonds, but I toast them. I roast them slightly. Yeah.
Okay, Arlene, if you will just Google Mind Diet, the Mind Diet book, you'll find several listings. There's one for beginners, the actual Mind Diet book, Mind Diet for Two, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's lots of resources out there.
Thank you very much, Barbara and Chris. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate all the help I can get.
Shall we thank LuAnn again for a wonderful morning? This has been wonderful.